Tonight, we're going to preview the top 25. And it's fun to go through these rankings. The only difference between this and the college football games is you don't have the Liberty ads. It was Liberty Bibberty ads like during the games. It's a funny commercial, though, in all seriousness. The top 25 preseason poll is out. I'm going to start with the teams that didn't make the cut to kill some time. Since it's 8:29, we've got an extra minute. I'm going to start with some teams that didn't make the cut. Okay, the teams that received votes that failed to crack the top 25, Louisiana Lafayette, Colorado. Colorado has Jordan Seaton, a left tackle in the 2027 draft, and Liberty quarterback Kadon Salter did transfer to Colorado. Julian Sayin, the freshman quarterback, Army Black Knights. Army Black Knights lost their running back to Arizona State. Pittsburgh, Pitt Panthers, they did not make the top 25, but Pitt did win an ACC title back in 2021-22 when Pickett was in his senior year, but I mean, they haven't been relevant since. And I would argue right now, Pitt soccer and Pitt volleyball are the two best programs at Pittsburgh. Pitt's volleyball made their third straight Final Four in women's volleyball. They've made 4 Elite Eights for men's soccer in 5 years. So I would say right now, Pitt soccer and volleyball teams. And what's crazy, William, is I told Joey this, Pitt volleyball, Pitt soccer are getting more primetime games than the Steelers. Isn't that nuts? I mean, that's crazy for Pitt. Yeah. I'm happy for Pitt's athletic program, the Pitt Panthers, but that's a crazy stat. Just saying. We'll move on.
Well, TC. College football is like that, man. It's religion.
It is religion. I'm not. And usually when it comes to Pittsburgh sports, Pitt Steelers, Pitt Penguins, and Pitt Panthers get the highest viewership in terms of rating. But because Pitt volleyball, Pitt soccer have been more consistent, they're getting more primetime games on television as a result. And it does feel like there could be a changing of the guard, especially if Aaron Rodgers struggles with the Steelers. But Eli Holston, they've got a good running back at Pittsburgh. I went over Pitt on the ACC preview. Next team, TCU Horned Frogs. They're a team we're going to preview on Saturday's Big 12 show. They received consideration. Iowa received consideration. Navy received top 25 consideration. They did not make the cut. Liberty received consideration. Liberty was the favorite to win their conference last year, and they failed to do so. I think Jackson State won their conference. Duke in the ACC. Florida State received top 25 votes. Memphis, James Madison. Those are probably two of the best group of 5 teams. I think James Madison will win the Sun Belt. Auburn, Toledo is the favorite to win the MAC. But I think Buffalo is going to win the MAC. I already went over that a few weeks ago. UNLV, they've got a good running back. Nebraska, they've got Dylan Raiola at quarterback. Tulane got a quarterback in the portal from, I think, Duke. Tulane lost their quarterback to Duke. Missouri, we don't know who's starting at quarterback for Missouri, but they've got a really good running back from Louisiana Monroe named Ahmad Hardy, probably the top running back in the 2027 draft. Georgia Tech, I talked about them on Saturday. They're my pick to make the ACC title. USC, Louisville. We talked about Louisville on Saturday, how they're a good team, but they just lost too many pieces on defense to compete for an ACC title. But I think they're going to have one of the best offenses in the conference. Baylor, Phil Steele's pick to win the Big 12. Baylor's Phil Steele's pick to win the Big 12. I'll preview them on Saturday. Utah, number 2 team for Phil Steele, and BYU. They are starting a true freshman at quarterback. So BYU, Maryland, and Michigan are the 3 Power 4 teams starting a freshman at quarterback. But now we get into the top 25. At number 25, Boise State. They've lost Ashton Jeanty. They still have a good left tackle. They still have some players from last year's team back. They are considered the top group of 5 team in college football still, even with the loss of Ashton Jeanty. But if they get in, they'll probably be an 11 or 12 seed versus last year. And instead of them getting the bye, they'll get a shellacking to either an SEC or Big 12 runner-up. But I think we're going to see multiple SEC teams in the top 5, and we'll probably see 2 Big 10 teams, 3 SEC. And they'll get whooped by one of those in the 5-12 matchup. At number 24, it's the Tennessee Volunteers. Tennessee's interesting. They replaced Nico Imaleva with App State quarterback Joey Aguilar. I know Joey wanted to talk about Aguilar's impact with the Vols. But that's not until 2 weeks from now. But, Aguilar is coming into this Tennessee team. They got David Sanders Jr. playing right tackle for the Vols as a true freshman. And David Sanders Jr. could be a 2028 first-round pick. Tennessee's an interesting team, William. And I think the Vols, we'll see what the Vols do this year. They've got Miles Kitselman at tight end and Jermod McCoy at corner. Those are probably their two biggest players. And then you got Joshua Josephs at edge rusher after losing James Pierce Jr. to the Falcons in the first round. But yeah, the Vols are at 24. Texas Tech, one of my dark horse teams to win the Big 12, is at 23. And Iowa State, a team we just previewed on the first episode of Under the Bleachers, is at 22. And then rounding out 21, the first of the bottom 5 of the top 25 is Ole Miss. Even with the loss of Jackson Dart, they are still a top 25 team. And they lost a ton of receivers and defensive players in the NFL draft. Princely Umani and Trey Amos, they're no longer on Ole Miss. So that's another thing I'm looking at when scouting Ole Miss, Williams. But any thoughts on 21 through 25 before I get into 16 through 20?
Texas Tech, and it's because of Baron Morton. He is a good quarterback. He is raw, but the kid has some talent, but he's also had some injuries too that have held him back. He actually kind of had the same waist that Michael Penix had. And then I looked at their injuries, and in their AC joint was the same. And I guess maybe it was just that way because as they started to get healthier, started to get better. I watched both of them do it. Baron Morton wasn't as bad as Penix because, Penix has that whipping motion.
Okay, so I'm going through my Big 12 roster preview really quick. I've got 6 NFL players in Arizona State, 7 on Iowa State, and a whopping 15 on Texas Tech. Now, Texas Tech has to play Utah, Arizona State, and Kansas State on the road this season. But if they find a way to win those games, I'm just going to say this. If Texas Tech can make the Big 12 championship, I think they're going to win it this year. I don't know if they'll win enough games to qualify for it, but if they do, they're my pick to win the Big 12. And I'm saying that because I think they have the best defense in the entire conference. You go back and you watch Sam Leavitt versus Texas Tech. Scatibo's the only reason that was a one-score game, William. That Texas Tech defense was forcing numerous turnovers on Leavitt, and they flustered him the entire game in Lubbock, Texas last year. That's what the tape shows. And Arizona State, they did get a running back from Army in the portal to replace Scatibo. I don't know if it's going to be enough, to be honest. We'll see. We'll get to Arizona State later, but I agree with you. Yeah. Texas Tech is probably the standout team among that group. All right. 20 through 16, Indiana Hoosiers, they get Fernando Mendoza from Cal. We previewed them on Draft Utopia. Just a really well-rounded team. Kurt Signetti, he's starting to build that culture. Indiana comes in at 20. Texas A&M comes in at 19. We'll preview them in a few weeks. Oklahoma comes in at 18. They've got some nice players. They're another team we'll preview. Kansas State is a team we already discussed a little bit on Under the Bleachers, and SMU. I think Kansas State, probably the team that stands out the most among this group because they do enter the year as favorites to win their conference. SMU has a pretty stacked roster as well. I know you picked them to make the ACC title. And Indiana's a team that surprised a lot of people last year. They do got to play Oregon on the road this year. Joey thinks they can beat Oregon. We'll see. It's going to be interesting, but I think those are 5 interesting teams. What team of those 5 do you think stands out the most?
I want to see what happens. Connor Wigman is still at Texas A&M, ain't he?
No, he is not. He transferred.
Oh wow. Yeah, because do you know?
Connor Wigman's at Houston now. Houston Cougars got him, and they got Tanner Borzil, the tight end you liked.
I noticed, his raw like footwork and talent, it absolutely matched Josh Allen. Like literally trying to drive the foot down and put that little extra snap, on the ball. It was something that Josh Allen was doing, and it was the reason that balls are sailing or ducking everything else, man. But Connor Weekman was doing the same thing when I evaluated him, and it was like, man, you
Yeah,
just can't
but
be doing
Connor
that, man.
Weigman's on Houston now, and he's going to have Tanner Kozoil, the Ball State
I
tight
like
end,
that.
to throw
I
to.
like that.
Houston's did a nice job attacking the portal this year. The Houston Cougars, I got to give them some love. They're not in the top 25, but I got to give them some credit. They did a really nice job attacking the portal. I look at Houston, I look at Louisville, and I look at Florida State as the three teams that probably did the best job capitalizing in the portal.
It's such a lateral move going from Houston or Texas Tech to Houston. They must
Well,
have
he
promised
lost the
him
starting
something.
job at A&M. That's why he transferred to Houston. All right. Before we
That
get
was all
into
at
the
the end
top
of that.
12, I'm going to preview 13 through 15. We'll do a fun exercise here. Most overhyped team in the top 25. You've got South Carolina at 13, Michigan at 14, and Florida at 15. Of those three, who would you argue, in your opinion, is the most overhyped of those three? I mean, that's a tough one because I like Sellers, but I'm not in love with him as a prospect, even though I think his arm is going to get him picked in the top 10, like Richardson, like Allen. Michigan has Bryce Underwood, but they lost their right tackle. They lost Andrew Balboa, their 5-star freshman, to a season-ending injury. And Florida has DJ Lagway at quarterback. They got John Michael Sturdivant, but I don't know if Florida can take that leap this year. I would say of those three, the most overhyped is either South Carolina or Florida. I might be a little bit biased towards the Gators, but I'm gonna say South Carolina is probably the most overhyped of those three. But we'll see. It'll be interesting to see which one of those teams ends up disappointing the most. So South Carolina, Florida, and Michigan.
I'm gonna
change your overhyped.
I'm gonna change your nickname, Chris. It's not gonna be the brain anymore. It's gonna be, get this, logic. What I'm seeing here and what you're talking about, everything is like what I see in plain writing on stuff, and you're like actually putting it into words. I'm like, holy shit, dude. Ooh.
It's funny, though, because a lot of people are saying those three teams are overrated. They're ranked. All three teams are ranked too high. That's why I asked the question. Which of your
South
opinion?
Carolina, man.
Yeah, so we're in agreement. South Carolina is the most overhyped team. I mean, Sellers looks worse at decision making than Richardson did in college, and Richardson just lost the starting quarterback job to Daniel Jones. All right, yeah. Okay, time to get into the top 12 here. Got 18 minutes to break down the top 12. Number 12 is the Illinois Fighting Illini. This is a team that I predicted to make the Big 10 championship game. I think they lose to Penn State, but I do have Illinois in the Big 10 championship game. They get Ohio State at home this year. If they could steal that game, they're in. If they can't steal that game, it's going to be Penn State versus either Oregon, Ohio State, or Michigan, depending on who has the most losses. Michigan does have a really easy strength of schedule. That's why I kind of excluded them from the overrated discussion. And Underwood could be the best QB since Trevor Lawrence, but he's got a little bit of cheeseburger fat on his belly. I'm wondering if that's from the DeMarcus Russell effect. But regardless, Illinois, I like Illinois' defense. Their left tackle, J.C. Davis, is good, and they've got a good senior quarterback in Luke Altmaier. So the Illinois Fighting Illini are a legit dark horse to win the conference. Number 11 in the preseason poll is Arizona State. They're the favorite, along with Kansas State, to win the Big 12. You've got Sam Leavitt, but I think the star on Arizona State is Jordan Tyson, their wide receiver. I mean, yes, he only runs 14 out of 30 routes in the route tree, but he's a great possession receiver. He can get 10 receptions a game. And really, if you want a possession receiver that can get you 10 receptions a game, Jordan Tyson's your man. And probably the best receiver Arizona State's had since they had the Brandon Ayuk and Keel Harry tandem. So, yeah. And both those receivers ended up being first-round picks, despite having lackluster quarterback play. And Arizona State has Sam Leavitt, probably their best quarterback since Osweiler. And that's really saying something because Levitt won an ACC. Levitt won a conference championship, which is more than you could say about Osweiler. But yeah, Arizona State comes in at 11. You want to add anything to that before we get to the top 10, William? Number 10, it is all about the U. They're going to play Notre Dame on Sunday in week 1. Carson Beck, CJ Carr, we'll get to Notre Dame in a little bit, but the U, they got Reuben Bain Jr. back from a season-ending injury at edge rusher, Francis Mauigoa at right tackle. They've got some talent on this Miami Hurricanes team. They've got a corner I have in the first round of the 2027 draft. So this Hurricanes team, even after all the offensive turnover they had last year, they're still one of the best teams in the country, but I'm not sure if Carson Beck, it feels like he only brings half the fire Cam Ward brings. And Cam Ward didn't bring a lot of intensity to the team. Even though he's very talented, he did not play with a lot of fire. And Carson Beck's only going to bring half of that to Miami. So I am a little bit concerned about the Hurricanes. But if they've got a shot against everyone else besides Clemson and SMU. Number 9 is LSU, Garrett Nussmeier. I saw a mock draft. I got Field Yates post his first mock draft. He has Garrett Nussmeier falling to the Steelers at 16. That's not going to happen. He's not going to drop that far in the draft. And I know Joey's going to be pissed if it goes down like that, because then Shedeur Sanders is going to have to play Garrett Nussmeier, Joe Burrow, and Lamar twice a year. Joey would not be happy about that.
Nussmeier is one of the smartest quarterbacks I've seen in the last few years. I mean, he is absolutely brilliant, And another one of these is born and bred to be here. The kid and Quinn Ewers, they were both similar type quarterbacks, but.
And Field Yates, to his credit, he has the same 5 quarterbacks I had in the first round, and he has Arch Manning at number 1. So I'm not going to knock Field Yates' mock draft. He has the exact same quarterbacks as I did in my 2026 mock, and he's got Arch Manning at 1, who I put in my 2027 mock. So to be fair to Field Yates, whether Arch Manning declares this year or goes back and enters in 2027, that's going to determine whether 2026 or 2027 is a stronger quarterback class. But both of those QBs outside of Arch Manning have 5 first-round QBs in each of those draft classes. So this is where the rankings come into play, William, because if you have Arch Manning at 1, you're over every QB in this draft, you're going to want to trade down and get extra 2027 draft capital. If you have Nussmeier, Al, or a Klubnik as your QB1, you're going to be willing to give up a king's ransom to get that guy if you're in need of a quarterback, William. So that's why I think we're more likely to see trades in both the 2026 NFL draft and the NHL draft, because 2026 has more star power in the first round. 2027 is deeper and has more talent in round 2. And when you're in a situation like that, you are more likely to get buyers as well as sellers if they know the player they want to draft. If the team knows what they want to do with that draft pick, you're more likely to get buyers as well as sellers. So that's why I think we will see my over-under for trades is 5. That's for both the NFL and NHL this year in 2026. I think we'll see a minimum of 5 trades. We could see less than that. We could see more. But let's get to Alabama at number 8. Besides LSU and Garrett Nussmeier, Alabama lost Milroe. Ty Simpson takes over. Alabama's got most of their offensive line back. They've got a very easy strength of schedule, and as long as they can beat the Bulldogs and Uga, I think Alabama can go 12-0. I don't think they'll win the ACC, but they've got a very easy strength of schedule. They get Tennessee at home this year. I think the Crimson Tide can go 12-0 in the regular season if Ty Simpson picks up where Milroe left off, and they handle business against Uga in Athens, Georgia.
Quick question, you, what team?
Alabama. If they can beat Georgia in Athens, I think they can go 12-0. I'm not picking them to win the SEC. I think there are teams like Georgia, Texas, and LSU. I think all 3 of those teams are better on paper than Alabama. But Alabama has such a favorable strength of schedule that I think if they beat Georgia, they are pretty much in the SEC title game because they get LSU at home, they get Tennessee at home. They have a very favorable strength of schedule. And I think if they can beat Georgia, which is a big if, they're 12-0 and they're probably in the SEC title game. But I think they would lose to Texas, Georgia, or LSU. I think they could beat anyone else. That's the thing with Bama. I think they could beat anyone else in the SEC. But I think LSU, Georgia, and Texas can all beat Alabama on a neutral site. And the only team of those three Alabama has to play on the road is Georgia. They get LSU at home this year. So that'll be a big game. Number 7 is Oregon. Oregon Ducks. I think Dan Lanning's the best coach in the Big Ten. I know you've got them in your Big Ten championship against Ohio State. You want to break that down before I get to Notre Dame?
That's going to come down between Oregon and Ohio State. It's going to come down to the coaching between playing chess. What those two teams would they would absolutely be able to. I mean, the coaching is absolutely the difference, and I'm not sure. I don't like Ryan Day as much as I like Dan Lanning. Dan Lanning is a great defensive coach, and that's what Oregon thrives off of. Except for when they have Bo Nix. They did all right with Dylan Gabriel, but Dylan Gabriel was so limited.
Now they got Dante
was
Moore.
Up this year?
Now they got Dante Moore at quarterback. I think you did go Ohio State over Oregon, but that's probably such a tough game for you to pick, and it feels like such a coin flip. And we don't know how Julian Sayan's going to do as a redshirt freshman. We don't know how Dante Moore's going to do at Oregon. So both teams, both the Buckeyes and the Ducks, have some uncertainty at QB this year.
I'm intrigued with Sayan.
Yeah, me too. Because I've got 6 QBs in the first round of my 2027 mock. Sayan, Arch Manning, Dylan Raiola, DJ Lagway, Nico Imaleva. Only reason he's in round 1 is because he can make all 6 progressions. And Owen McCown. Owen McCown of UTSA is my dark horse. He looks like a left-handed version of Patrick Mahomes with some of his deep throws. Owen McCown. Joey has Owen McCown as his QB1 for 2027. So UTSA's Owen McCown, that is a guy you need to keep an eye on. But we're going to get to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish now at number 6. CJ Carr takes over as a starting quarterback, freshman redshirt. You have Jeremiah Lovett running back, some wideouts in the backfield. Leonard Moore had 11 deflections as a true freshman next to Benjamin Morrison last year. Fighting Irish have a really good offensive line as well. I think the Fighting Irish, they have the number 1 offensive line in college football. I think Phil Steele's prediction was Penn State over Notre Dame for the championship. If Notre Dame can beat the Hurricanes, they could end up going 12-0. And if they go 12-0 and everybody else has 1 loss, does that make Notre Dame the number 1 team in the bracket? I would say yes. Say yes. If Notre Dame goes 12-0 and every other group of 5 champion has 1 loss, I would say that means Notre Dame's earned the right to be the number 1 team in the tournament as far as seeding goes.
Very much.
Because you can't have this double standard where the SEC teams, even if they only have 1 or 2 losses, they get them in the Big 12 get the top over, Big 10 get the top overall seed. No, that's not fair. Notre Dame goes 12-0 and everyone else loses a game. Now, if Penn State and Alabama both go 12-0 and you want to put Notre Dame at 3, I can respect that. Okay, but if Notre Dame goes 12-0, they're undefeated to end the regular season, and Penn State's only losses to Ohio State, and then you have the SEC champion at 2 losses. I think in that scenario, Notre Dame would be the number 1 team in my 12-team playoff, just for seeding.
Yeah, I can absolutely agree with that.
All right, so Notre Dame's at 6. Georgia comes in at 5. I do have the Hurricanes winning that game, but if Notre Dame beats them, And Notre Dame's favorite at the moment. So if Notre Dame wins that game, I think they probably will end the season at 1. But Georgia comes in at 5. Georgia's got to play some tough opponents. They got to play Alabama at home. They got to play Tennessee on the road. And I don't know what Georgia has at quarterback. And I think Aguilar is better than the media is making him out to be. I think Gunnar Stockton is worse than the media is making him out to be, and I think Aguilar is better than the media is making him out to be. So I actually have Tennessee and Alabama. I think Tennessee and Alabama both could end up beating Georgia. So I have Georgia on the outside of my SEC championship preview at the moment. And I'm debating between LSU and Texas as to who's going to. But, Georgia, because of their prestige, because they have a lot of talented players on defense like C.J. Allen at middle linebacker, Day and Everett at corner. They have K.J. Bolden, the top safety in the 2027 draft. They have a lot of talent returning on the defensive side of the ball. And that defense is why Georgia's number 5. And Oscar Felt enters year 2 as the number 1 tight end for Brock Bowers. Replacement for Brock Bowers. Year 2 is the starting tight end. So I think Georgia at 5, that's a good spot for them. But I do think they're the most overhyped team in the top 5. Ohio State maybe 2, because Ohio State could lose to Texas, Illinois, Penn State, and Michigan. But they could also go 12-0 if Sayan dominates. We really don't know what's going to happen with the Buckeyes this year. It really comes down to Julian Sayan and how he develops. But I think Georgia's the most overhyped team in the top 5. But I think you can make an argument for my Buckeyes, too. I do. I really think you can make an argument for them being overhyped as a top 5 team. Clemson, very good team on paper. They should be 10-2, but they might. I have them at 9-3. I think they lose to Georgia Tech. I think Clemson loses to LSU and South Carolina, but they win the ACC title. But if they go 9-3 and win the ACC, I don't know where they'd be seated. They probably would be around 7-9. If I had to guess to end the year, because if they start 1-2, they'll go from being 4 to being 17 or 18, and then they'll have to win each game just to move up in the brackets. They'll have to win out, and then they'll probably, if they lose to South Carolina, that'll probably put them at 8 or 9, and then if they win the conference, that'll move them up to 7. I don't know. Ohio State, we mentioned them already. They could win 8 games. They could win as many as 12. Penn State. Well, toughest game on their schedule is the road game against Ohio State. But if they can come out of that with a win, they could be 12-0. And then Texas, they got to play. I think they get Georgia at home. They may get Bama on the road. I think Ohio State's the toughest game for Texas. If they can win that, they might go undefeated. But yeah, that's Arch Manning, Ryan Wingo. This is a very interesting season. William, what do you think?
Penn State being at number 2 with the experience they have, Drew Aller coming back, he is a tough dude, and the only reason that I see Texas ranked above them is because of the hype of the Mannings. And,
yeah, Penn State has 9 players with Pro Bowl upside on their team, offense and defense. They're probably the best team since 05 Texas or 04 USC, just on paper. Just on paper, in my opinion. Penn State.
Good to almost great things out of Arch Manning, but I just haven't seen enough to say, that he's number 1. For preseason, my number 1 quarterback would easily be Garrett Nussmeier.
Nussmeier would be my number 1 for now. And then Klubnik and Aller, they're all kind of tied. And I think Arch Manning does have a higher ceiling, but we haven't seen enough of a sample size. We haven't seen enough games from Arch Manning to put him in that number 1 spot for now. What if he struggles against Ohio State to open up the year? And I love Penn State, but at the same token, we'll see what happens. I think Penn State probably is the best team in college football, but we'll see. It's going to be a very fun, very entertaining season. And
yeah.
It's going to be a great season, but yeah.
Just watching Drew Aller, man. He's absolutely a warrior, there are obvious, nicks in his armor, but the guy, every time there's a nick, there's another place where he's pushing for a win,
I agree.
I absolutely,
and the only way I've got Penn State over Clemson as my title game prediction right now. Dabo Swinney going for a third NCAA title, but he ends up crapping the bed against James Franklin and Penn State in the most unexpected way possible. I don't think fans would enjoy that matchup, but they might. But that would be my title game pick if I had to pick right now, Penn State over Clemson. And I love LSU and Nussmeier, but Clemson's got 3 NFL wide receivers. LSU only has 2. So that's why I'm leaning Clemson over LSU at the moment. But both teams have 2 NFL corners. And I think the only way Texas wins the title is if the Simpsons prediction comes true, because the Simpsons are usually correct when it comes to predictions. And the Simpsons did make a college football prediction that Arch Manning and Texas would beat Penn State in the national title. And Arch Manning was wearing Texas orange. Penn State was wearing their white jerseys. And that was the championship game. And the last Simpsons football prediction was Super Bowl 51. They had the Patriots beating the Falcons. That did end up happening. Tom Brady and Belichick, they did pull off the greatest comeback in NFL history in the Super Bowl. Not to brag, but Simpsons did call that. So this
We
is
live in a simulation, bro.
Simpsons have made for football since that Super Bowl, and they've got Texas beating Penn State. And it's ironic because Texas and Penn State are 1 and 2 in the polls to start this year.
We live in a simulation, bro.
What, we live in a simulation and the Simpsons already know what the college football season's going to look like? Is that
actually
what you're
no? I'm not fully into the whole living in simulation, but I think we're just like an alien ant farm, and I think they put us here to see what they, who would win. Maybe it's just a big game of Risk, man. I love that game growing up. Maybe it's just like that, and that's us moving around. I mean, I don't know. I think I agree with that one a little bit better than the simulation, but the Simpsons.
I'm just saying, I'm still taking Penn State over Clemson. I'm still taking Penn State over Clemson, but if I'm wrong,
money,
don't blame
bro.
me. Blame the Simpsons. Blame the Simpsons for correctly predicting Texas over Penn State. I mean, they've predicted like a bunch of other tragedies and stuff, whether it's hurricanes or they had the magazine that said 9/11 in 1998 on a Simpsons episode. They've predicted some crazy things over the years. So I'm just saying, if I'm wrong, it's because the Simpsons predicted Texas over Penn State, who are ironically 1 and 2 in the polls. So if those 2 teams win out and they're both undefeated and they play for the national title, that wouldn't surprise me. So we'll see what happens. But yes, that's the top 25 for this week. On Saturday, we're back to preview the Big 12, the AFC South, and the NFC South. On Draft Utopia, I'll reveal my Big 12 winner. I'll tell you why the AFC South division's the worst in football. Joey will have a rebuttal for that. And then I'll tell you which NFC South team is going to make the NFC title game at 8 and 9. That is all on Saturday. And then next Wednesday, we have Under the Bleachers. Brandis is back. 1-year anniversary of Under the Bleachers. That's next Wednesday. More details on that to come in the coming days, but we'll be back most likely next Wednesday at 8 to break that down. That's William Yanish. I'm Chris Ransom. We're signing off. Enjoy your evening.